Okay, welcome everybody at the third day of European Vegan Summit. I'm really glad that we are all here today to talk about issues important to all of us. As we know, the matters regarding the political aspects of availability of vegan options and plant-based diet is still very hot discussion, and we are all aware that there is still a lot to be done. But that's why we are here, and that's why we've got so many great guests today that will be talking with us about this topic. My name is Agata Lewandowska. I am representing the Polish Foundation Parents for Future Global, called in Polish Rodzice dla Klimatu. And on behalf of Green Rev Institute and the Plant-Based Strategy, I will be hosting the panel today. At the beginning, I would like just to mention that in the regard to the recent events in the south west Poland regarding floods that are very severe and are showing us how what does the climate crisis actually look like in reality for our population, I would say that we strongly need awareness and solidarity of decision makers, of politicians regarding climate crisis, regarding our safety, and regarding also the well-being of all of us, including also animals, all living beings. So this is very important, and right now we clearly see what the climate crisis is, and it's also very much connected with the topics we'll be discussing today. Well, I would like to welcome the panelists that we are meeting today. I would like to meet Eleonora Evi, the ecologist, feminist, and anti-speciesist, born in 1983. She's got a degree in service design and master's degree in strategic design. She is a former MEP and has been elected to the Chamber of Deputies in the Italian Parliament in 2022. And today she is a member of the Partito Democratico. Hello, Eleonora.
Hello, everybody.
Yes,
thank you for inviting me.
Great. Now I would like to welcome Cristina García, Vice President of PACMA, a lawyer specializing in animal law and an active campaigner for animal rights and veganism. Hello, Cristina.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here on behalf of PACMA.
I would also like to welcome Benedetta Scuderi, co-spokesperson of the Federation of Young European Greens, who focuses on sustainability policies, community engagement, and social impact assessment. Hello.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Please say hello to Enric Noguera, European Cities campaigner at Plant-Based Strategy, who advocates for sustainable food systems and represents Climate Safe at UN climate negotiations.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here.
And last but not least, Varda Mehrotra, an animal advocate and movement builder exploring intersectional solutions. She founded Samayu to undertake intersectional work and apply a systems approach for issues surrounding justice and animals in food systems.
Hi, everybody. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Varda. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being with us in this important topics and this important discussion at the European Vegan Summit. Of course, there's no doubt that scientists, activists will not be able to fight the climate catastrophe effectively on their own and will not be able to transform the food system that is currently basing on zoonotic products. And we know that these products actually are supported strongly by different sorts of governmental aid. And we know that the politicians don't do enough or do actually things that are called greenwashing, or do not do at all, do not enough, or even if they do it, they don't do it efficiently. The measures are either cosmetic or are carried out in a way as if we had a lot of time in front of us. But we know that the climate catastrophe is approaching. We know that all the other crises, poly-crises are happening around us, and we don't have so much time. Benedetta, if I can call you first, could you tell me, why is it going this way? Why the politicians from left to right are not proposing us changes that we need at this time, right now? And why? What are they afraid of? And should they be afraid of that? What do you think?
So I'm gonna give you some comments on what happened in this plenary in Strasbourg. So I'm in Strasbourg as I'm a member of the European Parliament for the Green Group. And we have been talking a lot about droughts and about flooding. So all the climate extreme events that we are experiencing all over Europe. So there's some countries that are being more affected, like I come from Italy, and in Italy, honestly, it's extremely affected, from north to south, for different reasons, everyone is suffering and impacted by climate change. But also now we saw what happened in Central Europe, and then it happened in Western Europe. It's affecting all of us. So it's not we cannot doubt that anymore. So we've been doing these debates in the Parliament, in this plenary, and the debates were focusing a lot on the events, and they were even calling for meteorological extreme events, and they were calling for pleasing all the service, the firemen and the civil protection that is helping and supporting to react to this event. But there was a huge part of the Parliament that was not even saying the word climate. In their commentary, in their interventions, they did never say climate. They never said that it's due to the climate collapse. They never said that there was a link about the climate emergency and the extreme events. Then we voted for a resolution that was about the extreme events and the floodings and in all over Europe. And the ECR, so one of the far right groups, put in an amendment saying, but we also need to recognize that the meteorological extreme events, so again, not climate extreme events, but meteorological, they always happened. They also happen because regions are not prepared. So even blaming the victims and not really understanding that first, these are events that are too big to be prepared. I mean, it's true that we need to adapt. It is true that we need to be prepared. And many times we are not, because we are also extremely slow in adaptation. But we also need to understand that when a flooding happens, the same amount, it comes down in 1 hour, the same amount of water that you can get in 1 month or 2 months. So this is not something, that if you clean the sewage, you will solve. And if we give the narrative of, this is just extreme weather condition that always have happened, or, this is a meteorological event, or, if you are more prepared, it's going to be fine. If we get this narrative in our mind, then we're not going to ever solve the problem, because we're not going to connect the actual cause of the problem and the solutions to the problem. We're not going to understand how we need to adapt, and we will not do anything about mitigation. And then I come to the point. Why is a big part of the political spectrum so scared or just not willing? Because I don't think it's being scared. They really know what they're doing. They're not willing to talk about mitigation. They now start talking about adaptation a little bit, which is great. I mean, we do need that. The climate is changed and it will change. We're not going to be able to stop it completely. But then when it's about mitigation, everything becomes useless. Then there's another country like China is emitting more, or anyway, it's not related to human emissions, or there's always a reason why mitigation should not be done, or maybe because it's not economically sustainable. And it's like, it's a flooding every month economically sustainable? It's a drought for like a year economically sustainable? It's all that is happening is wildfires economically sustainable? No. But they are trying to put this dichotomy. And why they're doing that, I'm sorry, but it's pretty clear, is the lobby. Who's got the money? Like, it's the same that happens in the animal welfare. It's the same that happens in agriculture. It's the same that happens in energy. There's huge powers. There are huge lobby, and they want us to go business as usual, because if we change the model, first, they cannot exploit resources, animal and people, because then the model will change. And if you don't exploit these three things, you're not going to get richer and richer. And second, they need to invest loads of money to change. And they don't want that. So we have, we need to phase out fossil fuels, but gas is fine. And then even if gas is not fine, we're going to go into blue hydrogen. And anyway, we need more pipelines because we will use them for something. It's like, no, we don't. If we need to phase out fossil fuels, we don't need new pipelines. But then it's impossible for them to keep the same business and do more profits, because now they already invested a lot of money and they want to keep doing business as usual, because it's the only way they can become bigger and more profitable. But the fact that they're already so big, it's giving them a huge economic power that really influence decision making, unfortunately. And this is the only reason I can see for not going faster. I mean, it is true that while we do the transition, we need to understand a lot of aspects. Not everything comes so easily. I've been talking since I was elected with like so many industries, so many stakeholders, and there are issues. We cannot deny that there are issues that need to be solved in the transition. But the fact that there are issues and that need to be solved, it shouldn't make us to go slower. It should just make us to understand that we need to invest more money and time to find the solutions and to implement them. And the word investing, it's also like a key word. If we do not start willing to do public investing and private investing, we're not going to have a transition.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that what you mentioned is something called blame game. We like to blame everybody else, not us, right? So she should do it, they should do it. But it's about the responsibility on different levels, and everybody needing regulations, and regulations needing people to adapt to them, and businesses and so on. So it's like everybody's responsibility. And here we would like to also focus on this responsibility of decision makers, of politicians. In our panel, this Gov, vegan, we need to also, as you said, underline this responsibility of people that create these regulations, right? And starting this discussion, not running away from the word climate, right? It's climate, and it's something that we have influence on. Thank you very much. I would like now to move to Varda with this question, but on the side of your activity. How would you say, why are decision makers afraid to give regulations that actually people need? Maybe they don't want it, of course, but they need these regulations. So why are they afraid? What do you think?
I think very similar to what Benedetta was saying. I think there's a fear of disrupting traditional economic structures. I think most politicians are afraid of destabilizing the key industries that drive national economies. And traditional animal agriculture, I think, continues to remain politically untouchable just because of the sheer size and the power of the industry lobbies. So even though we know that all these zoonotic based systems, food systems, it's unsustainable, but the political resistance is very high because of a fear of economic fallout. I think there's also a factor of political short-termism in here. It's certainly in India, there's an inherent fear of losing voter bases that is tied to traditional agricultural models and traditional food systems. So politicians then become unwilling to push for policies that may have delayed but significant long-term benefits because of short-term electoral cycles. So even though we are at a risk of more zoonotic pandemics, politicians end up ignoring these dangers. And through the One Health work that we are doing, so we are using the One Health framework to push for systemic changes by linking the zoonotic risks with food system reform. So our argument is that it's not just about food, but it's really about preventing the next global health crisis and working with policymakers through the lens of the One Health approach, really showing the interconnectedness of public health, environmental sustainability, and for food systems. So I think linking it to these sort of broader issues, using frameworks that are popular within both national and international policy, I think is a way to perhaps try and overcome some of the challenges that we face. And I think the biggest one is certainly just how untouchable traditional animal agriculture is because of the size and the power of the lobby that exists.
Okay, thank you a lot. That's great, interesting. Okay, let's move on. Eleonora, if I could now ask you, we would like to have some fun right now, although the topic is quite serious. And let's have some fun with political fiction. Suppose you're a prime minister in your country. What do you think? What should be the map of the food system transition? What it should look like? What the key decisions, 3, 4, 5, however, how many you can now imagine, what steps should be taken in order to reach these goals in your country and later on in a broader perspective?
Okay, thanks a lot for this question, but I would like first to add one small comment to what you were saying before. I completely agree with Varda and Benedetta, of course. What I would like to add is that have you ever noticed that the rate of conflict of interest in the agri sector is really higher than any other sector? And I make just this example. You don't find a CEO or a chief of an energy company in the ITRE committee, which is the Committee for Energy and Research and Industry. While you find, definitely you find members of parliament that sit in the agri committee that are farmers themselves. And these create another level of difficulty on how decisions are made and how it is difficult to make step forward and step in the right direction. But moving to the question, well, I cannot start by mentioning the law proposal that I have filed in this term at national level, because for me, the first thing we have to do is to stop intensive farming, to put really a stop to, in particular, to all the new requests of opening new intensive farming. This is the trend in Italy and elsewhere, and this is completely not only a mistake, but a real threat and a real risk for all the risks that we, of course, know. And in particular, we should do that starting from those areas where the pollution is so high that put at risk the health of citizens, namely where air pollution in my region, for example, in Lombardy region in the north part of Italy, air pollution is now the norm, and it should not be this way. And the same we could say waste that pollute soil and water. We have to start at least with this kind of action in an urgent and rapid way. And then my law proposal not only says that, but also says, okay, let's work together on a plan to try to transform the entire sector, building all the actors at the table, and try to, of course, you should involve farmers, but also trade unions, also, of course, civil society, academics, and there you have the possibility to try to design a new way of producing food in a country. It sounds a bit, it sounds for sure difficult, but this is a way to proceed, in my opinion. And then we come to the money. The money are key in all what we are doing. And at the national level, you can start to do a lot of things, but most and foremost, you have to work at the European level, transforming the common agricultural policy, for example, shifting all the subsidies and all the public money that still goes to intensive farming and shift them to in a production of food that is truly sustainable. And what you can do at the national level is another law proposal that I made, is trying to reduce, for example, VAT, reduce VAT on plant-based products, for example, on vegetable meals, for example. These are this is a step that, in my opinion, is so important to make in order to try to change the market and change the possibility of these products to be really at the hand of many citizens more than today. Because today in Italy, for example, these products have a 22% VAT tax. That basically it's the same as a luxury product, which is of course crazy if you think that these are products that not only put away the suffering of animals, but also are making good to the planet and to the people. So these are some of the ideas. One other thing that should be done very urgently is to ban advertising on this kind of products, on industry and meat and dairy products. This should be made. And another action should be, for example, to make public procurement, so the purchasing of public goods from institutions, the possibility of those institutions, those public procurement, to have a higher attention on plant-based products. This should also give another big signal to transform the entire food system.
Thank you. Thank you a lot.
But not least,
yeah.
Cultivated meat and cultivated products. In this, I want to mention it because it is such a crazy thing that my country, Italy, with the government that we have today, has introduced the very first law to ban the production and selling of those of cultivated meats, based on a number of lies that you cannot imagine. But this is, of course, a big mistake that we will pay, I guess, in the future.
Yeah, it's a pity that such things can be banned so easily. And if you want to ban something that is not good for us and the planet and living beings, right, it's much more difficult, right? Okay, thank you. I would like to move on, but if any of you would like to add something to this wish list of what should be done in order to make it easier to introduce plant-based products, feel free. If anyone would like to add something to this list.
Yeah, we just
everyone endorsing the plant-based treaty. That's easy.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Enric, would you like to say something about it?
Yeah, so just very much in line what our colleague Eleonora was saying. I think at Plant-Based City, we worked a lot at the city level just because we estimate around 70% of the consumption happens in cities. Therefore, city changes can really have a massive impact. And so some of the things that we try to work on a lot is in public education campaigns. We've worked a lot in the Netherlands, and there is actually 3 cities that have already banned meat and dairy advertisements: Haarlem, Utrecht, and Bloemendaal. So there is something that is already a movement that is already taking off. A lot of things that we also are working on to shift and nudge public perception are honest labeling. So, for example, introducing carbon labelings in the products in terms of the environmental impact as well as the health impacts. This is something that the city of Edinburgh, for example, is also working on through plant-based city policies, and then some other financial instruments like redirection of subsidies to show, not just to make plant-based products cheaper, but also to show the real price of meat and dairy products, because they are not reflecting the externalities that they are having on the environment, on health. Because if they would, the prices would be much, much higher and would become a really luxury product. Another proposal that we are working on, which is a bit harder to implement because it's a bit of a financial instrument, would be to implement a methane tax, so the meat tax, so-called, and then direct all these proceeds to restoration of ecosystems. So these are some of the things, especially we focus a lot on education, both at the public level, but also in schools and hospitals. And I just wanted to highlight a measure that New York is doing, which is they have installed plant-based by default diets in hospitals, and it has uptake by 60%. It has increased by 60% all the uptake of plant-based foods. And it's just very easy fixes. And I think for policymakers are also very easy fixes to get behind, because it's not just about banning, it's more about nudging, it's more about educating and sort of educating the population to move in a certain direction.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's really, really important. Thank you for the data about New York. It's astonishing. Cristina, would you like to add something here?
Well, I have very little to add because I totally agree with my colleagues. I think very important, the information campaigns, not only limiting the ones referred to animal products, but also launching informational campaigns about the health benefits of a diet free of animal products, as well as campaigns that show the real conditions in which animal lives on farms and environmental consequences of intensive livestock farming. I think this is really important, as well as promoting the offer of vegetarian and vegan menu options in all public institutions. This would make it easier to make these products accessible to everyone. Something else I can add is controls. All these proposals, we have them in PACMA electoral programs. We've got many of them, but I think controls on livestock farms is essential. We would implement greater number of inspections to these livestock farms, which would be more thorough, strict, and regular, and of course, increasing the taxes to these kind of industries.
Right, thank you a lot. And I would like to ask you also some more about the thing that you mentioned, but you said about taxes and about things that should be added to this fiscal side of farming. We know that zoonotic farming is very subsidized in different manners. That's why these products are much cheaper, quite often much cheaper than plant-based diet. And apart from the things that you have already mentioned, what do you think about this aspect of the choice to the consumers? What should be done? Because we think that consumers actually should decide. We've got free market, they should decide what they want to eat. We cannot tell people what to eat and so on. But later on, even if they say that they would buy something healthier, something more environmentally friendly and so on, when they come to the shelves, to the store, they make decisions quite often, unfortunately, and we cannot argue with that, based on the price. And the price, as already Enric said, does not reflect the real price of the product as far as the environmental and other aspects, sustainability aspects are concerned. So what can be done here? What do we need in the market to be introduced so that these products reflect the real price, and so that consumers get a better option and more options in shops and are more aware how to choose between them? Cristina, yeah.
Yeah, of course. The subsidies is a huge problem we've got, especially regarding the European Union. We know the 80% of the subsidies to farming are to this kind of animal products. So first of all, we should eliminate any kind of subsidies to the sector of animal products, and instead of that, give them to more to healthier and more ecological plant-based foods, such as fruit, vegetables, legumes, seeds, cereals, or even algas. And apart from that, we should promote real competition between these kind of products, because, as you already said, these subsidies given to the farming instead of vegetable products are distorting the prices and making more sustainable and ethical food less accessible to the consumer. So this has to change. And the market is not going to make this situation equally. It's not enough letting this to the hand of the market, to the free market. This only is willing to change if the politicians make decisions about this. So if legal changes are implemented and if politics take part in this, so it's crucial that decision makers take a part in this.
Okay, thank you. Benedetta, could you add something to it as far as the fiscal side and subsidies are concerned on the European level as well? What should be changed here? And is there any chance that it will be changed?
On the chances that will be changed, I'm very scared. I mean, it didn't change in last mandate. And this mandate is it's going to be much harder because of the confirmation of the European Parliament is much more on the side of who never really cared about too much about environment and animal welfare, with some few exceptions. So it's quite like in the European level, it's quite simple. I mean, European level cannot decide on like VAT, for example, cannot decide on these more internal things, but like they can decide where a third of the budget goes. So the common agriculture policy is a third of the entire European Union budget. And at the moment is actually funding a lot of like intensive farming. The idea is that they fund them to become more sustainable, but then there's no controls about that. And actually, the bigger you are, and more funding you get. And usually, when you're that size, you have an intensive farmer, which is like bad for like food agriculture, but it's even worse for animal agriculture. I mean, in Italy, we had an amazing documentary, Food for Profit, that really showed how the system of budget, like EU funding, works. And we are basically, with the public money, now giving public money to animal sufferance, to environmental impact, to horrible like ways of agriculture and food industry. So this is like what is happening at the moment. Then you have other things you can do on a European level, which is like addressing a little bit why prices of veggies and fruits are so high, for example. So the big distribution, so you can have actually some kind of measures to level up a little bit what happens in the big distribution, because at the moment we have a very big issue, price gap between what veggie costs when it's produced and what we pay for it in a supermarket. And this is something that the European Union should address. And we should start to. It's more fair for the agriculture, for the farmers, but it's also more fair for us, because the situation right now is that we pay less for meat than for courgette. And this is absolutely unacceptable, like, because it doesn't make sense even on an economic way. And that meat is subsidized. And then we need to give subsidy to also the farmers, because the prices that the big distribution pays are not enough. So it's just a system that doesn't work. So in terms of pricing, from the European perspective, there's two big things that should be done. One is I think three actually, common agriculture policies, where the funding are going. Stop any funding to intensive farming. Stop. That's it. We should not give it anymore. That's a very simple measure. Then we need to regulate the big distribution, and we need to regulate what comes into Europe. Because of course, if we think that we're going to solve the issue with the internal farmers, we also need to give a stop of intensive farming outside of Europe. So this is also something that we need to look into. But as I said, I'm very, very scared that this is not going to happen in this mandate. And I'm very scared that the common agriculture policy will look worse than it looks now. And this is something that we will do anything we can to fight. But yeah, it's a pretty sad the direction that the European Union is taking at the moment.
Okay, understand. Okay,
Agata?
so
If I could, I'm
Yes.
sorry, if I could add one more point, which I think it's really
Sure.
interesting, because I talked before about taxes, about higher taxes, but I didn't explain myself enough. This is one point we always have in PACMA's electoral programs, and it's about implementing a climate tax on animal products, where the tax would be calculated based on the emissions generated by the production of each food item. And these taxes we propose in our programs that could be used to compensate the climate damage caused by this kind of industries. I think it is something that we could implement not only in terms of the European Union, but also locally.
Okay, great. So these are some positive aspects and some positive solutions, which give us some hope. So moving on to this positive side, I hope we can find some of them. And of course, we all try to find these positive aspects and positive solutions already implemented. So what positive examples and good practices in your local policies, in your local level, also national level, would you mention in this systemic change? What have you already noticed? What are you noticing that is going to be implemented? Would you like to share something like that? Maybe Varda?
Sure, yeah, thank you so much. I think what's really worked for us here is using the One Health framework to talk about the challenges that exist within the food system, and to highlight One Health and to highlight the public health risks that exist, because those are a much higher priority for policymakers to act on compared to issues of animal welfare, unfortunate as that may be. And with state governments, what we're doing is that we're collaborating with them, and we are trying to work with state governments in a way that some of the support that they're giving to farmers for growing their aquaculture or poultry farming operations, those can actually be used for sustainable farming practices. So that's something that using the One Health approach, by linking issues within the food system with public health issues, zoonoses, pandemics, we are definitely seeing more openness within policymakers to act on issues vis-a-vis unsustainable food systems. We've also had, in the discussion that was happening earlier in terms of how markets are not enough to, we need legislative change to support this sort of a transition. I think food labeling also has a major role to play there. And I think food labeling is also something that, has had relatively more success compared to other sorts of tactics for food system transformation. And in India, we've certainly seen more willingness to improve food labeling, at least in terms of identifying what sort of products are vegan, what sort of products are thus with more sustainable farming practices and so on and so forth. So I think on both ends, I think both in terms of using public health issues and also food labeling, I think those are certainly good examples that we are seeing here in India that give us some hope.
Okay, great, thank you. I think that food labeling is something that we mention quite often, which is very important. Also, I think that we are also more and more talking about this digital product passport. So also consumers will have more and more chance to track the origin of products and so on. So maybe it will be helpful. Eleonora, what would you say that on the national level in your country is something that is a good practice already implemented or being implemented at the moment?
Well, first on labeling, this is another step dramatically needed to give the power to consumer to make informed choice. But the bigger threat here is that greenwashing is dominating everything. And I mentioned what is happening in Italy, where there is an ongoing system for a certification for animal welfare that basically can be applied to all the farms and all the production that are taking place now in the country. So basically, like everybody are now sustainable, like everybody now respect animal welfare. So this is simply, of course, a way of making fun of people and not be serious in presenting such an instrument, which is, on the contrary, very much important if designed in a proper way. Regarding the positive things, well, I have to mention that Food for Profit documentary is now a candidate for the Oscar. So it's very important because really this is a documentary that has had a strong success in Italy and really has the chance to raise people awareness on these topics. And other positive things, I guess, is that on trains like I am at the moment, you can have vegan options as well. But no, be serious. Last year, in 2023, they had an important recognition of sanctuaries, namely those places where animals are rescued, and finally they got a formal legal recognition, which is an important thing because they have an important role in terms of education, in terms of really trying to make a change at the cultural level on the way we treat animals and the way we behave towards them. These places, of course, as you know, are places that host animals that are saved from mistreatment and from suffering in the industry meat. So it is really important that they have got this kind of recognition, but still it is not enough because they do not have money. They are not protected as it should be in order to work properly. One single example is that tomorrow we will celebrate 1 year of a very sad episode that happened in Pavia, in Lombardy region, where because of African swine fever that is tremendous virus affecting pigs. Some 10 pigs have been killed in this sanctuary. And this has, of course, created a huge reaction from many people, because here we have to state it clear. These animals are no more food. They are no more food. They are outside the food system. They are animal, and they deserve respect, and they deserve dignity. And therefore, to these places, we cannot apply the same rules and the same laws that are applied to intensive or animal farming. This is still a huge fight to be where we have to continue work. And tomorrow we will be protesting in the street in order to try to ask change to national level, regional level, and all the institutions that are involved and that could try to have and to make this change possible.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward to more positive aspects, I would like to ask Enric, as far as the plant-based treaty being introduced in more and more cities and organizations, how do you think it influences in this positive manner? What positive practices can we notice later on regarding the consciousness, decisions of policymakers and decision makers after they implement the plant-based treaty in their city or organization?
Yeah, so this is a very good question, because one of the things that we are noticing is that after some of these implementations, there is a very, very positive response overall from both policymakers and consumers. And so, for example, one of the biggest achievements that we had in this last year was the endorsement of the city of Amsterdam. And some of the measures that they implemented was by 2030, they set a ratio of 60-40. So it's going to be 60% plant-based, 40% animal-based of all the protein that's going to be sold in the city. And then there is going to be, and supermarkets have already pledging to this, catering companies are already pledging to this. They are going to be implementing plant-based options in all public funded institutions and hospitals, government buildings, etc. And then also organizing for first time from the city an annual plant-based conference with care institutions, schools, universities, and other different stakeholders they're going to be bringing together. And we're noticing that there is always a very positive response. Always there is, this classical conservatives, maybe politicians that are always trying to, roll back those policies. But in general, we're finding very positive responses in terms of, taste. For example, we have done one of the very things that works very well is just doing presentations with food tasting, and that is always very well received. A lot of people actually don't know how much externalities these products can have on the city. And for example, this morning we're having a meeting with some councillors from the city of Glasgow, and they were saying how tight their budget is, and they were wondering how, because there's always these myths that plant-based companies and plant-based products and etc. are much more expensive, therefore it's much more harder to implement these kind of policies. And then we just showed how there is very easy ways to actually implement changes that actually are cheaper, but also very healthy and much better for the health of the city in terms of citizens, but also in terms of the environment. And I also wanted to highlight a little bit the work that we're doing at the UN, because we're working now with several global South countries, and these companies have a very colonialistic way of expanding, and so they're expanding markets with the sole purpose of growing. And we're seeing countries like Gambia or other partners in Africa that are, for example, inundated by billboards from Dutch companies, dairy companies, trying to bring in their products, trying to sell it, candy for kids, and trying to find new ways to enter. And also, this is very impactful on the local production. But above all, it's bringing new health issues. It's bringing new environmental issues in these countries. And so something that we are seeing is that policymakers from the global South, we are working in particular with Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Gambia, and other countries as such. They are very eager to work on finding ways to get back to the roots, because this is not something that it's new. predominantly plant-based diet is something that was already here before, and we just basically are helping steer and find ways to stop the expansion of animal agriculture, to stop the expansion on the global south, and help bring back policies, practices like agroecology, for example, and finding back, this combination of rewilding while restoring ecosystems, and at the same time, food production in a very much natural way that also gives food. It's, the concept of food sovereignty. It's very, very important for us, because at the same time, even when we talk about vegetables, we talk about companies like Monsanto owning most of the seeds that are around in the world. So it is also something that we need to bring into the conversation. It's not so much just going to plant-based food systems that it's enough, but we also need to be talking about making sure that these systems are also able to provide food security and food sovereignty. And the positive news is there is a lot of these global south countries that are still not so much, let's say, infected with the disease of expensive animal agriculture, and so we're still on time to work on stopping that expansion. And they are very much eager to work. In Gambia, we're very much working with the Ministry of Education. In Sri Lanka, we're working with the Ministry of Tourism. So there is many different aspects in which we can enter, and it's becoming very, very successful. And every partner that we're working with are very, very thankful, because it just turns out to be a much better practice in every sense.
Okay. You mentioned that this concept of plant-based businesses and so on is not new, because it's been our roots, right? The population in our countries have not been eating so much meat and so much meat products, animal products in the past. So it's something that has changed, and we need to go back to these roots of these plant-based diets in many aspects. But here we can also mention the fact that there are many vegan businesses that struggle. They are quite often also new businesses that tried to broaden the offer for consumers to make it more possible to eat vegan food in restaurants and buy something at shops and so on. So we have more options, and that's great. But they struggle, of course, because of these crises that we have faced in recent years, like COVID, inflation, prices of energy, and so on. What do you think that at national levels can be done to help these businesses in this market, so that they get more support, they are maybe more promoted, it's easier for them, of course, in legal aspects, of course, what is possible? What can be done so that vegan businesses could have better position in the market, meaning they are not struggling, but they offer good for everybody products, and they don't have to worry about regulations that are sometimes against them. Benedetta, at the national level, have you got any clues what can be done to support vegan businesses?
So first, we should stop contrasting them, because that's also like, Enric was giving like the great example of Amsterdam, for example. That really differs from the country to country, how much struggle like vegan businesses can find, and how much like social acceptance they can have. Like for example, in Italy, there's a huge propaganda against vegan food. And whoever is trying, to create like now we have like 3D printer, 3D printer food made with like vegetable proteins restaurant, and this was like even like attached by like the very very far right, I would say, narrative of being against anything that is vegan. So first, I think we need to understand, as you were saying, Agata, that's completely true, that this is a very new trend, that we're eating meat and fish every day. Like I come from the south of Italy, where like probably the Mediterranean diet was invented. And if you think of it, in the Mediterranean diet, you should eat meat once a month. And now, even there, they started to put in all traditional food pieces of meat, which is like not really a thing. And then if you ask for something that would be super traditional, that is a vegan meal, you are looked in a very weird way. So I think something is like awareness and education on the actual traditionality of vegan food. Like vegan food is traditional. It's not like this new concept that some woke people invented, you know, it's that actually what our grandparents were eating. And it's also extremely healthy. And also diversification of vegan food. Like vegan food is not just like the vegan burger. Vegan food is also lentil soup, you know, chickpeas curry. You know, like you can have amazing, very simple vegan food. You don't have to go into the fancy things. So I think awareness, education, like connecting to our traditional meals, and then I guess everything that we were talking about before. So you have like the highest prices of vegan products, they really affect the capacity of business making, especially for small businesses. If I have to spend so much to buy something, I cannot put a huge price on it, otherwise no one is going to come, and everyone will like prefer like another kind of restaurant. So I cannot make any very small margins. How do I survive, especially if I'm a new and small business? And also because I want to probably, if it's vegan, I want to be organic as well, and this is even more expensive. So you have all of that, and then you also encounter not like adversive regulation for you to get the permit, for you to get like the actual products, because we putting like very weird ban on names, how you should call that product, and what kind of product you can actually sell, or what kind of protein you can actually sell. So it's also like an uncertainty of the market that you don't know what you can do or you cannot do, like in a day or on one day or the other. And then you have the whole propaganda around it. So if you start working on this point, education awareness, stopping propaganda, stopping no sense ban, and making certain rules that are like stable, and then lowering the prices of what is vegan, I think you can actually support these businesses.
Okay, great for this voice. I think that stopping propaganda is something what we'll remember from today. Varda, as far as India is concerned, I think that vegan and plant-based diet is also rather traditional, right? It's not a new concept that we want to ban. So plant-based diet is traditional. Is it also regarded in this way that we forgot what is actually traditional?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think India, it's not hard to be vegan in India for sure. You know, I mean, there's a lot of traditional food tends to typically be vegan. Of course, though, now that we see, as we see more, as we see economic growth and we see more mobile income that, people have, that, they're getting upwardly mobile. We are finding that there's an increase in consumption of dairy and meat products. So while traditional diets, are typically vegan, vegetarian, we are seeing an increased consumption of, a significantly increased consumption of meat and dairy across the country. And large parts of the country have also had a heavy component of meat in their traditional diet. So it's not, it's not that all of India has, I mean, the diet within India, it's a big country. So within the country also, it's traditional diets can mean different things depending on different regions. And I think to support vegan businesses, I think, creating sort of dedicated funds to support vegan businesses, to support businesses working on sustainable food systems, really offering financial incentives, financial aid, especially, for example, when the government offers financial incentives during inflation or economic downturns or the pandemic, so providing some sort of financial stability mechanisms for businesses that are committed to these sustainable practices, to food system transitions. I think that's a really important measure. And of course, we've spoken earlier about tax incentives, that's come up quite a few times, but also for research and development funding. I think that's also something, supporting that innovation, providing R&D funding that can contribute to food system transformation, I think is also quite important to support vegan businesses, especially where the sector stands today.
Okay, great. Moving on to our actually last question that I prepared for today, but we also have some questions for the people that are listening and watching us. So I would like to move on to something that we see in the future. And of course, we are strongly focused on our problems now and nowadays. And we know that there are poly-crises, as I mentioned, we all need to think about. And thinking about policy in 20 years is something that is rather not popular, because as we know, policy makers, decision makers need to focus on the next term that they are ruling and the problems that are nowadays problems. But if you think about our future in 20 years, what should the food system look like in 20 years? How it should be supported? What should be the domain? Who would you think what kind of lobby, if there will be any, would be stronger? And what will the consumers have as a choice for them? Will it be healthier or not? Is there anyone that would like to start here with this answer? Enric?
Yeah, just go ahead if you don't mind. Yes. So, I mean, to be honest, it can go either way. I just try to be very realistic, and we are seeing a lot of positive changes, some of them which we have discussed here today. And if we looked at global crises that we had in the past, whether it's the COVID crisis or in the 80s where we had the hole in the ozone layer crisis, we have seen that humans are very much able to coordinate international responses in a drastic manner. And when in the 80s we had the hole in the ozone layer, it led within a year, 2 years to the signing of the Montreal Protocol, which basically kicked off the phase out of the chemicals that were producing the layer. And so there is magnificent examples of how we can work together and how we can change things drastically once the information is there. However, what we're seeing now is much multi-layered crisis and a much deeper crisis as well. And as you know, it has also been mentioned, information is already here. The science is already here. The ethics are also already here, and we are not seeing a fast enough change. So, you know, there is a quote, I can't remember the name now, but it said that we will change no matter what. Either we will change by our own will or nature will make us change forcibly. It goes something like that. So I think, what I try to say, for me personally, I just don't try to keep hope too much. What I just try to do is just work, there is no other option. Just keep working, just keep focusing on that. And I think I do have a lot of belief in grassroots movements. And I feel we have to work on building those bridges with other movements, with the feminism, worker unions, and other movements, just to interlap all struggles, the class struggle as well, and make sure that we are fearless and that we mobilize and get active. And I feel that, if we do that, we do have the numbers and we do have the information. So if we keep pushing, I think we can actually create a better world very, very soon. But yeah, we need to do it quickly and drastically.
Okay, quickly and drastically. Yeah, we don't have much time, so I think this is the answer. Thank you. Cristina, would you like to add something to that? Our future in 20 years?
Well, I feel optimistic. Despite sometimes I lose a little faith in humanity, evolution is something inherent to people. And even if it's for selfish reasons, to guarantee our own survival. I mean, if people, if politicians don't even care about animals or about environmental, if we want to guarantee our own survival in the future, we need to modify our food system towards a plant-based one. So among other things, I guess, or I want to believe that in 20 years, we will see more sustainable practices, more plant-based proteins, new technologies, integration, increasing local and urban agriculture, I think is essential. Reduce drastically the food waste, I think is also really important. And I think we are in the correct way. And finally, I think we will be able to see some cultural shifts. It's true that, as my colleague said before, vegan menu, it is not a trend, it is not something new. It really means going back to our traditions and to our food habits. But I think we need to move one step forward to accept and to normalize vegan options. Today we have more elaborated products, vegan products. So I think in 20 years, our culture will have moved forward, and then we will accept vegan products and vegan restaurants like any other else. So I think in these 20 years, we will be more focused on addressing these challenges of climate change and food security. And of course, I strongly believe that animal welfare will be a priority.
Thank you. Thank you a lot. We've got a few questions for people that are watching us. I would like to start with Eleonora. The first question comes to you. What can you say about the consequences for the planet, humanity, and animal rights? I think it's quite a broad question, but if you could refer to that regarding our topic today.
Well, I take the chance then to say something that is also related to the previous question on how will be the food system in 20 years, because I am an optimistic person and I would like to see positive side of the things. And I want to point out the last report that has been released by the European Commission, which is the title is Report on the Strategic Dialogue on Future of Agriculture. And this report basically has came out of more than 7 months of work and dialogues with all the actors of the sectors, so from farmers to civil society and academics and so on. And it gives a light in the end of the tunnel because it is quite clear on plant-based diet. It recognized that the reduction of meat and dairy is something that we have to work on, and at the same time, plant-based diets are the way we have to take. It is just a recommendation. It is just a paper. Will be transform it into actions, into goals. But I think that these, even though, as it was mentioned before, we are seeing that this legislative term at European level is probably much more difficult than before, because of course the shift towards center-right or more right parties is crystal clear. Nevertheless, I think that we have such an amount of scientific evidences that today are no more possible to discard and disregard. These supported by a strong and even stronger people support and participation gives really a big pressure on politicians. And I want to mention also the appointment of the newly nominated, newly appointed Commissioner for Animal Welfare at European level. This is a sort of a victory that came out of a strong
I can't hear you. Can you? Okay, I think we've lost Eleonora for a second. Okay, so
no more.
Oh, now we can hear you. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah,
I close it here.
Okay, thank you. Another question, as we mentioned tradition, so we also have a question regarding tradition here. How can we balance the transition towards veganism and plant-based foods while supporting small-scale fishers whose livelihoods depend on industries like fishing, so traditional fishing and small fishers? Would anybody of you like to handle this one?
Shall I try?
Yeah, I thought about you actually.
So I think that the point is here that we are like going towards a more vegan-based diet. It wouldn't mean, I mean, I hope we all agree that we expect that 100% of people in the world are going to be vegan tomorrow. So this is just, like trying to have more plant-based food. But that also means that the non-plant-based food that is produced should be produced sustainably. So it's not like, so now we have 20% of plant-based food, we go to 60%, and then the other 40% is intensive farming. That is not really the model and the system that we are promoting. What we are promoting is an overall more sustainable food chain and food production system. And so if you are promoting vegan food, you are consequently also promoting organic farming, small farming, animal farming, small fisheries and traditional fisheries that are not destroying the sea and the sea land. This is all coming in the same view of veganism and vegan and plant-based food. So I do believe that these things go easily hand in hand. Like if we are going towards a more sustainable food production system, that means that we are shifting the money and the funding from intensive farming, which can be any kind of intensive farming, to more sustainable farming. And then the amount of small fisheries is not going to reduce because they're not that much anyway. So it's not like, if we reduce the fish consumption, we're not going to reduce the amount of small fisheries, but we should get rid of all the big fish farming that are extremely impactful for the sea and for our climate. So this is like the kind of paradigm change that we should be promoting. And then you can have like more plant-based food, because of course small fisheries cannot provide the same amount of food that we're eating now, because we don't need that. We shouldn't need that. We need to eat more plant-based, and then if we want, you can eat fish now and then small fisheries will be enough. So they will be the ones that will stay, and that means that also their incomes will not be threatened by big farming. And we can shift the funding towards that. So I really think this is extremely connected in the debate.
Yeah, I think it's important that we mention that in the debate, that we don't want 100% humanity being plant-based, but on the other side, of course, this sustainability of the rest should be crucial here. Thank you very much. And as we are slightly moving to the end, we've got the last question going to Cristina. Cristina, could you tell us something more about the progress and good practices that has happened lately in Spain?
Sure, we have several examples we can give in Spain about these changes towards a plant-based diet. I could mention, for example, Madrid, Zaragoza, or Barcelona as cities that have promoted the creation of community urban gardens, for example, where citizens can grow their own food, encouraging the consumption of fresh and seasonal products. We can also mention Sevilla, Malaga, or Valencia as examples of cities that have promoted local producers markets. These markets have been established in the cities, and there you can buy fruit, vegetables, and other plant-based foods. And also, it helps to support the local economy and promote more sustainable diets. More examples about education. I would like to mention Andalusia, which is my region, my comunidad autónoma. Here, the Andalusian government have developed educational programs in school that teach our children about healthy food, focusing on the importance of a diet rich in vegetables. Or as the last example, it comes to my mind now, Barcelona is adopting policies requiring public institutions such as hospitals, schools, universities, or I think even prisons, forcing them or implementing vegetarian and vegan options in their menus, as well as trying to reduce the meat consumption. So yeah, it's a positive way of finishing this panel, talking about real examples of changes in the cities in Spain.
Okay, great. I have to visit Spain, of course, by train, so that I can check it by myself. Okay, thank you very much. We will be finishing, but if there is anything that you would like to add, I will give 15 seconds to anybody who wishes to do so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Of course. Yeah. Eleonora?
I take the chance to say that I think that this figure always gives a shock to people that read this. When we will be finally aware that we are using the 70% of agricultural land to produce just to feed animals, I guess that many more people will be understanding that we have to shift urgently our way of producing food, and so the food system will change, reducing dramatically meat and dairy consumption. This is a wish, but also I think something real and concrete that can be achieved.
Yes, and I think that consciousness and education here that also comes from decision makers is important, so that people really know what is the real price of the thing that they've got on their plates, on their shelves. And I think that this education is also something that should come for the decision makers, so that they are better educated, they're more conscious of the real price of the diet that is offered to the majority of people. And I think that we also should talk about how to raise the awareness of decision makers, and this education should come from many, many different directions. One of them is the European Vegan Summit that is already being held for you for the third day. I would like to thank you all, Varda, Eleonora, Benedetta, Cristina, and Enric, for joining us today. And I would like to also thank all the people that are watching us, are listening to us. Thank you for your time, for your questions. I hope that you get some more information, what should be done on the systemic level, so that we are all more engaged in this systemic change, in this plant-based systems, so that this fair transition is possible, is actually going on, and is actually going on right now, which is strongly needed. I would also like to ask everybody to follow you that were our guests today, because your achievements, your actions are really needed to be copied in many directions, ways, and in many societies. So I hope we all can get more good information from your side. And also please follow and support initiatives like the plant-based treaty, like the plant-based school, everything that is going on, that is raising awareness, that is doing advocacy on decision makers, and that is a strong green plant-based lobby, so that we get more options, we get healthier society, and we've got better planet for everybody that is on it. I would like to thank you all for joining, and also invite you to take part in the rest panels that are also taking on today till the late evening. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of the week, and stay safe. Go vegan, stay vegan. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.